All right, good morning and welcome to the 2025-2026 Arts, Culture, and Entertainment Memorial Walk of Fame. Yes. Let's give a round of applause for all of our inductees. My name is Katie Gore, and it has been an honor and a privilege to work on this project this year. So I would like to kick us off with a nice video that the Marketing and Communications Department put on about the City of Arts and Innovation.
The arts in Winston-Salem are not just important, but they're essential.
The arts are an incredibly effective tool in building community.
The arts play a crucial role in making Winston-Salem a great place to work, live, and play.
You walk down the street and you just feel that hum of people investigating, exploring, and that's creativity, which is ultimately artistic.
The greatest thing that I can think that the arts bring to Winston is synergy. Synergy and energy.
It brings together people from different ethnicities, faiths, walks of life, and allows them to commune together, to learn about each other.
Well, the city styles itself as a city of arts and innovation, and the arts come first.
And the arts allows people to sit next to each other, to laugh together, to learn about each other together. So it's just a great way to build community. The Winston-Salem arts community is the most collaborative arts community I've ever participated in.
You know, the arts have a very long and deep-rooted history here in Winston-Salem.
You feel that the moment that you come into the city, you see it with public art, you see people gathering, you see artists creating and making. It's vibrant and it's all over Winston.
Drama, dance, music, opera. I just think, I don't know of another community that has this kind of a resource. In terms of young, really talented people.
All right, well, I would like to introduce the Mayor of Winston-Salem, Mayor Alan Joines.
Good morning, everybody. It's one of those days when it's good to be mayor. There are other times when it's not so good. Council members, I'm joined with my council members, our Mayor Pro Tem Denise Adams, Council Member Vivian Joyner from the South Ward, and Council Member Annette Scipio from the East Ward. You know, it's in 2015, as you know, the 5 Royals were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And it was after that, Mayor Pro Tem and I were talking about Winston-Salem, that we've got so many talented individuals here that over the years. So we kind of came up with this idea of creating our own little Walk of Fame. And so we didn't know what we were doing, but we came up with the idea, and have great staff that can figure it out how to make it work. And so every year or every other year, basically, because we've sort of become the de facto kickoff for the International Black Theater Festival by this event here, because the festival officially kicks off Monday. So today, we're going to recognize 2 classes of honorees, the 2025 class and 2026 class. But we're just thrilled with this way this is taken off. We've got this whole area outside the Benton Convention Center where we have visitors coming into our city daily. Basically, we had great years bringing folks into the city. So I think it's a great spot for it, and we're going to continue to add to that. I'm going to ask if any of our council members would like to make a comment to Mayor Pro Tem. Sure.
All right, we ready. We ready. morning. And that's what's so great about how the mayor and the city council decided to, once we did this the first year, when we did it, we decided, well, why don't we just do this, to kick off the theater festival in itself, because it's about art, it's about theater, it's about all of that, musicians and all of the creative spirits. So again, we want to welcome each and every one of you here today. Again, I have to say, Mayor, this is the most people we've ever seen. And at this, and it's the weather, we were kind of worried about that, but you showed up. You didn't just show up for yourself. You didn't just show up for the city. You showed up for your family member, your friend, respective person of the contributions that these individuals have made to our city. And again, welcome and thank you. And I'm hoping all of you will also attend the theater festival.
The mayor said, keep it to 30 minutes. Well, good morning, and what a wonderful assembly we have today. Sometimes it's such a blessing as we walk through our lives to know ordinary people. We think they're ordinary, but they do extraordinary things in their lives. And so today, that's what we're recognizing. Extraordinary people who have done exceptional things in their lives. And I just want to say that I'm so blessed that I actually know and knew many of the honorees for this year. Mrs. Flonnie Anderson was she was my English teacher and drama teacher. And Big Ron Hunter. So Big Ron was a wonderful guitarist, but he was also my church member at St. Peter's. And, we would see him doing it at church. And then every now and then, I see him doing it on the street. And I'm saying, what's going on? And then the wonderful Carlotta Samuels lived in my ward. So I did not personally know Mr. T. Diggs, but I knew who he was, and I knew his sister. Ms. Diggs is here, very close. I think she's 99, something like that. What a blessing, what a blessing. So I say to all of you, cherish everyone you know, because all of us deep down have something special that makes us who we are. And be grateful for all the people who passed through your life. Thank you.
Good morning, and good morning. I have had the privilege of being part of the Arts District as a resident in the Arts District for more than 22 years. I had the honor of having Big Ron Hunter play in our restaurant for several times. Truly, this is the city of arts and innovate. But the art of it, the art of music, the art of sculpture, the art of the visual arts, the cultural, the writing, and the food. I have to say, when you put all of that together, it makes for a great space for collaboration, for healing, for thought, for community. That is where we live. We live in the city of art, and art lives in us. God bless you all.
Thank you, council members, and thank you all, members of the family and friends, for being here today. So here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to read each of the classes, the names of the 2025 inductees. Then we'll see a video about each one of them, giving a little more of a history for them. So the 2025 inductees are William Grady Benton, or Bill as we knew him, Julian Carr Burroughs, James Thackeray Diggs Jr., and Margaret Snodgrass Mueller. So we'll see the video about them.
Bill was so instrumental in the arts of Winston-Salem and keeping it together behind the scenes mainly. He wasn't necessarily the front person. His name's not in any of the buildings, but for instance, the building we're sitting in, the Sawtooth Center, he was instrumental in saving it from, I think, demolition potentially, and converting it into the Sawtooth Center as we know it today, and working with the Arts Council to purchase the building. Along with also Piedmont Crafts, he was instrumental. He was on the board for many, many years, and it wasn't just his time that he always did. He was always a recurring investor in the arts of Winston-Salem. So Piedmont Crafts, where they are now, he was very instrumental in finding that location for them, giving them a home that's front and center so the arts can be displayed within Winston. So,
and he arranged financing for all of it too, behind the scenes. So he never necessarily wanted credit for anything.
I don't think the arts are to what they are in Winston-Salem without Bill. With his financing and fundraising for, like I said, the Sawtooth Center that we're in, the Piedmont Crafts Fair. He was on the board for, I can't even tell you how many years. A lot of these things don't exist or in the capacity they are now without his fundraising and his donations. I did an event not that long ago, and someone was remarked when they found out he was my uncle. They're like, whenever we were short, we would always call Bill, and he would find the money to keep us operating and keep us going, whether it be the Arts Council or Piedmont Crafts.
But he was very unassuming. He didn't want the attention or the recognition necessarily for those things. I think he enjoyed the architecture and the history, and I think a lot of it is reading the history of Winston-Salem and just preserving that too, along, and then having the arts, because now we're the city of arts and innovation. He couldn't do it. He was so appreciative of those who could.
His art was different in that it was more the financing and the developing of buildings and taking historic buildings and renovating them to historic status and making them last. And that was his form of art. So he had an art of sorts, which was in the renovation development of historic properties, and seeing that vision. So I think he could relate to the artist and what they were trying to accomplish through their medium that they chose. He never wanted the recognition, I don't think, but I think it's well-deserved now.
I think he would be secretly.
He'd probably secretly be amused, or he'd have some really funny quip about it that I can't even do justice of what he would say.
His vision and the hard work that he put into making WFDD a community and really a regional asset. It's incredible, I think, what he did. And the second thing, which is more global, his efforts to create a national public radio network. Today we called it NPR and called it that back in the days when he did it. And that was phenomenal. He was one of the pioneers in that. Today, WFDD is on the air 24/7. And I think that's his legacy.
His legacy is kind of my blueprint, if you will. And it's really fun to go to Washington, D.C., to NPR headquarters, look at an original network map that was all over copper phone lines, and see that there were 5 to 7 stations all linked together across the country, and that Winston-Salem was a route on that loop that went around the country.
I think it was, again, his vision that really caused a lot of people, me and many others who followed me, and before me for sure, who really pushed hard to make this place, I think, to lay the foundation, I hope, for what this place is today. So I think he was the visionary. I keep using that word. It's trite, it's overworked, but he was truly a visionary. I don't think a lot of us realized at the time, but he was.
Julian really kind of paved the way for where I am now, and I kind of look at my job and my responsibility now as carrying the torch and kind of making sure his reality of what he was dreaming about comes true, and that we continue to carry that torch in public service to our community.
he was ahead of his time. He had gone to get his degree at the University of Michigan, which at the time, in the 50s, was one of the leading incubators of public radio and television. So he had good teachers, he had good examples. I guess I would just want people to know how much he looked into the future and how hard he worked to try and make WFDD, which I kind of said earlier, a community asset in the spirit of what the Communications Act of 34 calls for, operating in the spirit, convenience, and necessity of the community. And he did all that.
But I think he would be proud. I think he'd be proud of, the reputation we have in the community, the national news network that exists in public radio and here in our own hometown. And I think he'd be proud of the fact that we have one of the biggest growing news departments in the area.
I will have to tell you that I had to research my father when I did this, and I had no idea some of the things that he had done because he was always so quiet about it. I knew that my dad was always out in the community and doing all sorts of things, but he never really talked about it. He co-established the Winston-Salem Gallery of Fine Arts, or the Southern Center for Contemporary Arts, or SECA, which I believe is now called the North Carolina Fine Arts Museum, or the North Carolina Museum of Art. As far as I can remember, my dad always had a love for art. I remember even as a little girl, he would encourage me to get involved in art. I used to follow him to class all the time, and we would work with all sorts of mediums, and he would just let me explore. Well, my father, affectionately known as T, he had a very unique and endearing personality. He had a great sense of humor, and he was loved by so many. He had a long-term commitment to Winston-Salem State University and the Winston-Salem community and its students at Winston-Salem State University. He was such a source of inspiration for so many, and he was a great motivator, not just to his students, but also his colleagues and members of the community. I feel as if he gave others a real purpose. He enabled future leaders. He always had a way of putting the community and the university in the forefront. And he was not there for personal gain. That just wasn't who he was. He worked behind the scenes, and he never wanted to seek any recognition for anything that he did. He was a very humble individual. My father would have been so proud of this award, but he would have been extremely humbled. I think he would even shed a tear because he was a very emotional man. He would come on strong, but he was just a gentle, very gentle force.
So it's important to recognize my mother because she was just such a force in her community, in music, in the church, in the PEO, in everything she did. It was bigger than life. She brought great joy to everyone that she knew. She was always smiling and positive and She influenced so many of her students, and what I hear from them is that she was always positive and so enthusiastic about everything that they did. And anytime we traveled, which was quite a bit, they took students to Europe in January, on January program for Salem and School of the Arts. So whenever we traveled, we went to look at organs. We drove cross country twice, and all the way across America, we stopped to look at the organs. So in Winston-Salem in particular, she must have taught thousands of students. She taught, of course, at Salem College, or both my parents. They brought the students and the community to our house. And it was also a guest house for organists from all over the world. But there's so many people here that remember what she brought to this church that it will be everlasting. She was a trailblazer. She was one of the first, and so over the last 2 years, I've been going through their archives. So as I'm going through their archives at the house, there are programs for every recital that she played, for every recital that my father played, and for most recitals that their students played. So their home is an archive of the organ legacy that they left. I don't want to miss the fact that she played beautifully. Her music and her sense of music was just brought to life. So they recently, Salem College and School of the Arts recently had a memorial celebration for my mom and dad. And a lot of their students came, the music community of Winston-Salem, and there were Barbara Lister-Sink played a recital, Timothy Olson and Jack Mitchner, all of whom studied with my parents. So their legacy also lives on through their students, who have students now that teach, and so there's like great-grand students of my parents.
What would she say knowing that she's getting a medallion put next to the Veterans Center?
Oh, she would just be joyous. She would be so excited, yes, and grateful and thankful and humble.
Okay, go have another round of applause for the class of 25. So now for the class of 2026, Flonnie T. Anderson. Big Ron Hunter. Carlotta Samuels. Harold C. Tedford. And Robert Ward. So here are videos of these individuals.
Why is it not important to recognize my mother? She has done many things in this community, one being here at Parkland. She is a trailblazer. She was a trailblazer. She loved her students. She wanted the best from each and every one of them, no matter where they came from. She created a theater company before I was born in 1952. And this theater company just resonated. It lifted spirits in the Black community. It lifted spirits in every aspect of her life and the lives of others. And I just think that she was just an entrepreneur, just doing what she loved to do and enjoyed doing in order to bring the best out of others. She brought students together here at Parkland black and white, integrated, on the stage. And I just think, I was so young, but I just think that it was just a wonderful thing that she did. She's a phenomenal woman, and you need to read about her. You need to understand what she has done for this city, this community, really this nation. She was the first woman to bring a theater company to the Southeast region, FADA, Flonnie Anderson's Theatrical Association. And my thought is that she was just doing her thing. And she taught us, when you do your thing, you do your best. And everything else will just fall in place. If you were a part of being a student or being in Flonnie Anderson's Theatrical Association, that you were going to bring your best no matter what, because that's what she wanted. And you could not get around it because she just made you feel that you needed to do that.
Big Ron Hunter was the world's happiest bluesman. He worked all his life. I met Ron at the Stevens Center when he was working as kind of a do-it-all utility player, kind of over there, and I was doing some shows there, and I met him, and he had just reconnected with Tim Duffy of Music Maker Relief Foundation, and he was starting to play some gigs again, but he had grown up kind of playing music. His family were sharecroppers. And he told me all kinds of stories about him growing up, but he learned to play music from his dad, and then Guitar Gabriel, who was a wonderful blues musician from Winston-Salem, and then he dropped out of playing music for many years. And then when I met him, which was the late 90s, he was just starting to get back into it, and through Music Maker Relief Foundation, Ron put out a couple albums. He toured the world. He played at the Lincoln Center. He played at New Orleans Jazz Festival, yeah, and he just loved it. He loved to play. He always was so optimistic and joyful in his life and in his music, and he just spread that joy in his music. Did it when we, during COVID, we did an indoor series here where we filmed local musicians and put that out on YouTube, and Ron played a set, and it was just great. It's up on the Ramcats YouTube page now. And you could watch it, and you could see that joy and optimism and love of life. And that's how he lived his life. That's what his music was about. That's all he wanted to do, was share that happiness and joy. And he brought that joy to so many others. I mean, I think Ron's story is kind of emblematic of, roots musicians that necessarily didn't have big commercial careers, but made an impact locally. And the musicians he played with, Ronnie Carr was a guitarist who Ron played with often, and Ronnie was a great local musician, and so Ronnie learned a lot from Ron, and he was just a great mentor and a great inspiration for all people. I mean, he had so many friends in the music community. He was, he's been greatly missed and was much loved. I would want him to know that he just loved life and loved music and loved people, and that he shared that joy and that music and that beauty that he found in life with everybody. And so you couldn't come away from an encounter with Ron or listening to his music, without feeling similarly. And so I'd encourage people to go find that music on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, and give it a listen in his memory, because it was a beautiful thing.
I'm out here on my own, whoa, 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 whoa. Trying to have a little fun,
I think he'd be humbled, and he'd be so grateful. He loved Winston-Salem. He loved this music community, and to know that he was being honored, I think he would be at a loss for words, but he'd be smiling and he'd be shaking hands, and
For myself. For myself.
My mother, Carlotta, was just a jewel. And I don't say that because I'm biased, although I am. I say that because she just had such a magnetic personality and contributed so much to not only Winston-Salem, but abroad.
We had sang together for so long. You know, when you sing with somebody so long, you know their move before they know they move. So that's how close we were. And vocals were the same way. So it was just wonderful. We had a wonderful time.
People felt good when she was around. She just had this, again, magnetic personality that would just reach out and grab you. And it was one of those things that if you met her, you would not easily forget her. She could just embody this spirit of just warmth and energy and light. She started singing on her doghouse in the back of her yard, giving concerts to the neighborhood kids. And people just remembered her giving of herself and her talents. And I believe that, again, she specifically deserves this award because she was just a songstress that when she sang, it hit you to your core.
See, when the trio first started, we were about 12, maybe 10 or 12.
But she would be tremendously honored. And she was a humble person. So I don't even know if she would think that she was deserving, because oftentimes my mother presented herself as just your next door neighbor, right? All of the accolades, all of the accomplishments were fantastic, but she wanted to make sure that you mattered as a person.
I mean, she'd be happy for it. She's happy for it. But that's what we talked about, stuff like that. It's a lot of times when you are out there and living, people in your city don't give you the recognition that you deserve.
This is great that such a small place is able to honor such big people who led such magnificent lives and were able to share their gifts with us.
The best way I can describe him was an evangelist for the arts. His dad was a preacher, and I think he got that love of sort of performing in an audience from watching his dad. And I feel like once he came to Winston-Salem in 1965, he found a perfect place. When he came to Wake Forest, the theater was on the 8th floor of the library. It was a tiny little space, and his goal was to get the arts a better focus at Wake Forest, and he really moved through that journey in a way that, you would think that somebody would have had to have a lot more experience than what he had. He was also involved in so many other arts organizations in Winston-Salem, including the Little Theater, the Winston-Salem Theater Alliance, constantly supported the symphony, the opera. He really, if there was an arts event going on in Winston-Salem, Harold Tedford was usually there. And he brought so many other people into his passion because he loved that idea of teaching and sharing his love of the arts with so many other people. And being a teacher at Wake Forest was a way to do that, but also in the community, he would go to the Y and convince people at the Y to come see a play, or he would meet somebody at lunch and then he would convince them to go with him to the symphony, making sure his students went out into the world as, if not artists, supporters of the arts was just as important, because you gotta have those people as well. You can't just have the artists, you gotta have people that support. Certainly he raised 3 daughters that are big arts supporters, and I think it's one of those things he's most proud of is not just that, but this space that he created. I think when they named the theater here after him. That was one of the proudest moments of his life. But he felt it was kind of a gift to the community, not just the Wake Forest community, but to Winston-Salem as well. And those moments in his life, that was what he felt was his legacy. Those people that he had impacted in that way, the ones that he kept in touch with. I mean, Facebook was made for Harold Tedford, so he kept up with so many of his former students. And if he knew that one was going to a town where the other would live, he made sure they met up with each other and kept, again, that community going from the Wake Forest, whether they knew each other at Wake Forest or not. They knew Harold, and then they knew each other, so it's great. His love for trying to communicate that passion about art and theater in particular. I feel like the times that he took people to New York or London to show them the wonders of the theater, I also feel like he felt like once you went and saw the impact it might have on you, of course you would be hooked, because certainly he was. What he did wasn't really about him. It was about trying to gather people together in community to create art. And so I think in his mind, being honored for that is just like a sort of a side piece to what he was really trying to do. I think he would be, thrilled to have that star there on the walk, but it wasn't the reason he did what he did. But I think he would be, so honored to know that people in the future would know that, he really did contribute to the arts in Winston-Salem.
Well, there are several branches of his life that are important. Composer, teacher, publisher, administrator. And there are very few composers that I know of in America that can pull all that off successfully and maintain real artistic integrity, kindness, humor, getting things done. He was a great administrator and a great composition teacher. He was a real craftsman, and didn't, use flowery language or anything like that. Yeah, very different than your typical sort of artsy, poetic type. And it's funny because Robert, one of the things I admire about him the most is he did not become a modernist. He wrote the music he wanted to write, which was considered by many old-fashioned at the time. But man, if you go back and listen to The Crucible now, it is very passionate, very dramatic, very theatrical. There's nothing wimpy about it or pseudo-romantic or whatever. So I think the best way to know a person is to listen to their art form or look, whatever the art form happens to be. Well, it was Pulitzer Prize in Music was the most prestigious award in the United States anyway for composition, and it's an illustrious group of people, and it definitely elevates your status in the music world and the commissioning world and all that. He actually had to take time off from composition when he became chancellor here. He couldn't do all of it all the time, but I think part of the reason he resigned when he did was he had some outstanding commissions. I think one was from New York City Opera, which premiered The Crucible. He did a version of Hedda Gabler, the great Ibsen play. He wrote an atomic sort of parable called Minutes Till Midnight that was done at Spoleto Festival in Charleston. So he kept going after his administrative duties were over here. One thing that makes it tricky to answer about his impact in Winston is that most of the people he would have influenced are not here. They're all over the world, and if they're still in the arts, they're probably in an urban center. It's like casting a stone in water and it makes ripples that get larger and larger, concentric circles. I didn't realize how much I'd gotten from him until I got away from him.
We'll have another round for the whole class of 26. Gosh, doesn't it make you proud to be from Winston-Salem? Now, great talent, great talent. By the way, copies of these videos are on the city's website, so you can go anytime you'd like and see them, cityofws.org, and would it be going to marketing and communications? Walk of Fame will be right there. You can see it. Speaking of videos, we kind of made a decision this morning because of the weather that we would not venture outside for the unveiling. However, we've got a video of showing the stars being unveiled yesterday in the rain, and so that will be available to you as well. So here's a video showing the unveiling.
William Grady Benton. Dr. Julian Carr Burroughs. James Thackeray Diggs, Jr. Margaret S. Mueller. Flonnie T. Anderson. Big Ron Hunter. Carlotta Samuels. Harold Calvin Tedford. Dr. Robert Ward.
So after we adjourn, anyone who wants to go outside, of course, the stars are unveiled so you can take pictures and see them in person. Just be careful, that's right. But again, thank you all for coming today. Thank you for sharing your family with us and making Winston-Salem such a special place. Have a great day.